All right, y'all. So you are going to be doing the linear functions review activity today. This is going to help you prepare for our test 2 on Thursday. And so I highly recommend that you follow along with this. You can kind of skip through the video if you are understanding pieces of it, but I'm going to go through this whole entire review. This is very similar to the test. So I highly recommend that you go through each one of these problems, make sure you know how to do all these, make sure you understand everything. I'm going to go through and also explain all of them as well. So if you get stuck, if you have any questions, please reach out, but you should be okay. And so question 1, it says, which of the following relations represents functions? So you have A, B, C, D, and E. Well, let's go ahead and look at A first. A, as long as your Y, okay, so let me kind of highlight these. As long as your y and your x completely stand on their own, they don't have an exponent or are in the denominator of a fraction, you do have a function, all right? So as that's the only thing you really need to know about that. As long as a or your y and x do not have an exponent or on the denominator of a fraction, you have a function. Let's look at B. In B, you only have to look at, you only have to look at your x values here. I do not care about your y's at all. You only have to look at your x's. If your x's do not repeat, you have a function. If your x's do not repeat, you have a function. For C, okay, we can do that vertical line test. So let me get my vertical line. Okay, and what you can do with this vertical line test is you can grab it and you can move it across, right? So you would use a pencil, but you would drag it across your paper, and if you are hitting more than one part of a line, or if you are hitting multiple points at a time, you do not have a function. So if you can grab that pencil and you can move across your graph and you're hitting multiple parts of a line or multiple points, you do not have a function, okay? Looking at D, again, I only care about your x's, your output or your inputs, okay? If you have multiple arrows coming out of your numbers, that means you have multiple x's. So if I was to write these, your points out, your first one you have a 0, comma, and that's pointing at a -2, right? However, you also have a 0 pointing at 1. So that means your x is repeating. That means you have 2 zeros, right? And I can continue this process. 1 is only pointing at 2, right? I could continue if I wanted to. 2 is only pointing at 1, okay? So with these, if your arrow is pointing at multiple numbers, if your x's are repeating, you do not have a function, okay? All right, and then your last one here, all right, again, I only care about your x's. I only care about your x's. If your x's repeat, you do not have a function, but I only care about your x's. In E, your x's are not repeating, so you have a function. All right, let's go down to 2. The function y equals 25x plus 500 represents your monthly rent, y in dollars, when you pay x days late, where x is equal to 0, 1, 2, or 3. Identify the independent and dependent variables, the domain, and the range. Well, if we remember correctly, independent variable is represented by your x values. Your dependent variable are your y values. Domain is also your x values. And your range is also your y values. All right. Your independent variable, we are looking for words, okay? Your independent variable, what is being represented by that x, okay? And in this, if we're reading it, the function y equals 25x plus 500 represents your monthly rent y in dollars when you pay x days. All right, right there, we just answered what our independent variable is. All right. Now we can also do that with our dependent variable. Our dependent variable are obviously your y. So the function y equals 25x plus 500 represents your monthly rent y in dollars. There, we just answered our dependent variable. All right. We can also go through and figure out the domain. Now, domain and range are always going to be numbers, right? They're going to be inequalities. They're going to be points. Domain are all of your x values. Range are all of your y values. Just like your inputs and your outputs, just like your x and y's. They all mean the same thing. Your domain in this, where x is equal to 0, 1, and 2, and 3. Right there, I am answering that all of my domains are 0, 1, 2, and 3. So I would plug in here 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, we can also now figure out our range because we have this equation right here. Y equals 25x plus 500. Well, if x is 0, 1, 2, and 3, we can replace x with 0, 1, 2, and 3 and solve. So our first y would be, well, 0 times 25 is 0 plus 500. So our first y is 500. Our second y, we're going to plug in 1. 25 times 1 is 25 plus 500 is 525. We can also do that with 2. 25 times 2 is going to give you 50 plus 500, which is 550. And again with 3. All right, and if you can kind of see, we're getting a trend. We're jumping in a rate of change of 25, so our next one will automatically be 575. But also, we can also do that by doing 25 times 3, which is 75, plus 500, which is 575. Okay? If you have any questions on that, please let me know. All right, let's go ahead and move down. It's kind of split in pages, but which point could you remove to show relation would be a function? So we're looking at this graph right here. And yes, we can again do that vertical line test. So let me get my vertical line. And what we can do, or you can use your pencil, but we'll drag this across. Oh, there we are only hitting 1 point right here. Oh, we're only hitting 1 point right there. All right, I can continue. Oh, only 1 point right there. Let me continue this. Oops, sorry. But I'm hoping you're kind of realizing that, oh, only 1 point. And then this last point right here, look, we're going to hit 2. So we could either remove this top positive point, which is 4, 4. We can move that one. Or we could remove 4, -2. It really doesn't matter. You could remove any of those and it would work. Okay, you would create a function. Let's move down, fill in each x, y value and y value in the table below to create a relation that is not a function. Well, if we're trying to create a not a function, we just need to make sure our x's repeat. So I'm going to make this easy on myself and just put 2's for my x's. And if I just put 2's for my x's, then that means they're going to repeat, and we have a linear or we don't have a function, right? We're just trying to create a non-function. So if we just make sure our x's repeat, you have a function, or you don't have a function, right? So now that my x's repeat, we don't have a function. I just answered number 4. Using the graph below is complete all parts. So let's look. We have 4 graphs here. So let's look at A. Which graphs have a domain of all real numbers? Well, domains are our x's. And what that means is that our x values are going to go forever and ever and ever left and right. Well, let's look at A. Well, that's not the case because our domain is stopping at -1. And so that automatically is not going to be all real numbers. Looking at B, it also is stopping at -4. And so because it doesn't go past -4, that's not all real numbers. C, we can look at, and because this line is going on forever and ever and ever, left and right and up and down, C would be an answer. Let's see if D is. D is going left and up to the right at an edge forever and ever and ever. So D would also be an answer. Okay. Let's move on. Which graphs have a range of all real numbers? So which graphs have a range of all real numbers? So if we're looking at this, A is not going to happen because our range stops at -3 and it stops at 3, so that's not it. Range, oh, look, it looks like B would have all real numbers because you're going to go up and down forever and ever and ever at a slight angle. It would take forever, but we are going to get all real numbers there. Our range is our Y, so we're also looking at C, and you can see that C is going down and up forever and ever and ever. So C would also be an answer. But D would not be an answer because it never passes 0. And so our D will not be an answer for this question. C, which graphs have a range of all positive numbers? Well, A is obviously not it because it dips underneath 0. B is not it because it dips underneath that 0. C is not it because it dips underneath that 0. But D does not dip underneath 0 for our y-axis, for our range. So D would be our answer for that. D, which graphs are not functions? Well, for this one, we can just do that vertical line test straight across all of these graphs and see which ones we hit. So let's do that. So if we drag this across, but I'm also hoping that you can kind of see this, but if we drag this across, well, A is not a function, so we'll put down A, continue. B is not a function because it does not pass that vertical line test. C will be a function because it does pass that vertical line test. D will also be a function because it passes that vertical line test. So the only two we have to put down are A and B. Cool. Let's go down.